Have you ever felt that ache, that quiet confusion, when a man who seemed so invested suddenly pulls back? One moment he's all in. He's calling, texting, making plans, and then suddenly, silence. And in that silence, your mind starts to spiral. What did I do wrong? Should I reach out? Is he losing interest? Before you know it, you're chasing, analyzing, overthinking, and losing yourself in the process. That's why today, we're diving into something powerful. How to make him miss you without playing games. This isn't manipulation. This is about self-love and confidence, about reclaiming your energy and understanding the deeper psychology behind attraction. If you've been searching for real relationship advice for women, grounded dating tips for women, insight into why men pull away, and a path toward female empowerment in relationships, then stay right here. Because once you learn how to stop chasing men, how to embody a high-value woman mindset, and how to truly heal from toxic relationship recovery, you'll never have to question your worth again. Let's get into it. Because it's time to turn that silence into your strength. When you're always available, when you're constantly reaching out, when you keep showing up in every little space he leaves empty, you unknowingly strip away the very thing that fuels attraction: curiosity. Desire doesn't live in constant presence. It breathes in absence, in space, in moments of quiet where the mind starts to wonder, what is she doing? Who is she becoming? And that's the thing most women forget. You don't need to disappear, block him, or play any childish game. You just need to stop being emotionally predictable, because emotional availability, when not reciprocated, turns into emotional exhaustion. When you give too much of your energy, you start pouring into a cup that doesn't pour back, and slowly you start losing yourself in the process. I know it feels uncomfortable to pull back. You want connection, clarity, closure. You want to understand what changed. But the truth is, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to fix what isn't yours to fix. When you pull your energy back, you're not punishing him. You're protecting yourself. You're saying, I will not beg for what I deserve to be given freely. That's strength. That's dignity. That's how you remind both him and yourself that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And here's the part that's hard but freeing. When you step away, when you stop chasing, something shifts in the dynamic. He starts to notice the silence. Not because you disappeared, but because you were a source of warmth, comfort, and value, and now that energy is missing. Men don't miss constant contact. They miss what that contact represented. They miss the laughter, the calmness, the emotional safety you brought. They miss how they felt when they were around you. And they can only feel that loss when you give them the space to experience it. So instead of asking, how do I make him miss me? Start asking, how do I make me feel full again? That's where your power lies. Take that energy you've been giving away and pour it back into yourself. Go do the things that make you feel alive again. Rediscover your confidence, your laughter, your rhythm. Because when your focus shifts from waiting for him to text to creating moments that fill your soul, you start glowing differently. And that glow, it's magnetic. It's the kind of energy people can't ignore. Men can sense when your world revolves around them. They can also sense when it doesn't. And ironically, it's the moment you stop orbiting their attention that they start noticing your absence. Because now, you're not reacting, you're simply living. That's the sweet spot between strength and softness, where your energy becomes a silent statement. I don't chase what's not chasing me. That's not a wall. That's self-respect. And when he reaches out again, and he probably will, you won't feel the same desperation to respond. You'll pause. You'll evaluate. You'll realize that missing you wasn't the goal. Reclaiming yourself was. Because making him miss you is never about manipulating his emotions. It's about creating enough distance for you to reconnect with your own. That's where real attraction starts. Not in chasing, not in convincing, but in being. Now let's talk about the trap that so many of us fall into. The need to prove our value. That deep, aching need to show someone, I'm good enough for you. You should choose me. I get it. You've invested your heart, your time, your effort. You've shown up. But let me tell you something that might sting a little. When you're busy proving your worth, you're already telling yourself that it's up for debate. You can't convince someone to value what they don't recognize, and trying to only makes you lose sight of yourself. Every time you over-explain, overgive, or try to fix something that isn't broken on your end, you chip away at your own confidence. You start shrinking just to fit into the space someone else offers you. And that's not love, that's fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being unseen. Fear that if you stop trying, they'll stop caring. But the truth is, love isn't earned through effort alone. It's felt through alignment, respect, and emotional balance. When a woman knows her worth, she doesn't beg for attention. She doesn't chase validation. She doesn't compete for a spot in someone's life. She knows that her presence is already valuable. She walks into a room with quiet confidence, not because she's trying to prove anything, but because she understands that what she brings, emotional intelligence, warmth, strength, is irreplaceable. That kind of energy doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It simply is. And here's what happens when you stop trying to prove your value. You shift from anxiety to authority. You start living from a place of inner peace. You stop explaining why you deserve better and start expecting it. You stop analyzing every text and start watching actions instead. You become grounded, calm, collected. That energy is unshakable. It's the difference between, please choose me, and I'll be okay whether you do or not. And that difference? It's what draws people back to you. Because men are drawn to certainty, and there's nothing more certain than a woman who knows her worth. When you stop performing for love, you give space for authentic connection to form. You become the kind of woman who inspires respect, not pity. You stop attracting emotional inconsistency and start aligning with emotional maturity. So the next time you feel the urge to prove yourself, stop and ask, what am I trying to prove? And to whom? You'll often realize it's not even about him. It's about proving to yourself that you're worthy. And the truth is, you already are. You don't need anyone's validation to confirm it. The moment you release that need, you stand taller, speak softer, move freer. You become magnetic without even trying. And that's what makes someone miss you. Not your presence, not your texts, not your effort, but your energy. Your peace. Your confidence. The feeling of being around someone who doesn't need to be chosen to know she's enough. You know what happens in so many relationships? Slowly, without even realizing it, you start disappearing. Piece by piece, you give up parts of yourself to make room for someone else. The hobbies that used to light you up, you stop doing them. The routines that grounded you, they fade away. The goals you were chasing, you put them on hold. Because suddenly, being with him feels like the center of your world. And at first, it feels beautiful. Like connection, like closeness. But over time, that closeness becomes a kind of quiet emptiness. Because when your identity gets wrapped up in another person, you lose the magnetic energy that drew them in to begin with. The truth is, no one misses a woman who disappears into their life. They miss the woman who had her own. The one who was passionate, alive, confident, full of her own energy and purpose. That's who they fell for in the first place. So if you want him to miss you, stop trying to become his world and start rebuilding your own. Go back to the things that made you you. The laughter you shared with your friends, the projects that made you feel creative, the places you went just to breathe and feel free. Because when you reconnect with your individuality, something powerful happens. Your energy shifts. He starts to notice. Maybe not right away, but it's inevitable. When you stop revolving around his schedule and start living by your own, you become unpredictable again, in the best possible way. You're no longer available on demand, because you're busy living a full, rich life. That's not manipulation. That's balance. That's emotional maturity. And that energy, it's magnetic. Because men don't fall in love with women who need them. They fall in love with women who inspire them. Women who make them think she's amazing, and she's not waiting around for me to figure it out. It's not about ignoring him. It's not about being distant or cold. It's about being whole. When you show up as a complete person, not someone who's waiting to be completed, you become infinitely more compelling. You radiate something rare. Independence combined with warmth. And that's irresistible. Because deep down, every person wants to be with someone who chooses them, not someone who needs them to survive. So take that energy that's been pouring out toward him and turn it inward. Rebuild your rhythm. Do something that scares you a little. Something that reminds you of your strength. Sign up for that class. Take that solo trip. Reconnect with the version of yourself who had dreams before this relationship even existed. That woman is still in there. And the moment you start giving her life again, you'll not only make him miss you, you'll start remembering what it feels like to miss yourself. And that brings us to one of the most underrated, yet powerful, things you can learn in love: emotional control. Because let's be honest, when a man pulls away, it's easy to panic. It's easy to spiral into fear, to start thinking, he's losing interest. He's talking to someone else. What if it's over? You feel that wave of anxiety hit, and before you even realize it, you're reacting, sending extra messages, trying to explain, trying to fix something you don't even understand. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused? What if, instead of spiraling, you grounded yourself? That's emotional control, and it's not coldness, it's strength. It's the ability to feel those intense emotions, acknowledge them, but not let them run the show. Because here's the truth. When you can stay calm in the face of uncertainty, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. You're showing that your peace doesn't depend on someone else's behavior, and that's incredibly attractive. Most people think attraction is about looks or chemistry, but real attraction, the kind that lasts, is built on emotional stability. When you don't crumble under pressure, when you don't let your emotions dictate your actions, you show that you can handle the ups and downs of life with grace. That steadiness makes people feel safe around you, and safety, in relationships, is what creates connection. So when he pulls away, and you feel that urge to chase or question, pause. Take a breath. Remind yourself, I can't control his actions, but I can control mine. Instead of asking, wait, what did I do wrong? Ask, what do I need right now to feel centered? Maybe you need space. Maybe you need to call a friend, go for a walk, or write your feelings down. Because the moment you shift your focus back to yourself, you reclaim your power. That emotional calmness isn't passive. It's magnetic. It's what makes someone realize she doesn't panic when I pull away. She doesn't chase. She trusts herself. That confidence is the kind of quiet power that sticks in a person's mind. Because everyone can feel when you're centered. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You don't seek validation. You radiate it. And here's what's even more powerful. Emotional control doesn't just make you more attractive, it makes you more peaceful. You stop living in reaction mode. You stop letting someone else's inconsistency dictate your mood. You start feeling safe within yourself, no matter what's happening around you. And that's where your freedom lives. Because relationships will always have moments of uncertainty. People will pull back, get distant, go through their own stuff. But when you have emotional control, you stop personalizing it. You don't spiral into self-doubt or resentment. You can say, I see what's happening, but I choose to stay grounded. That's not detachment, it's empowerment. It's knowing that you can love deeply without losing yourself in the process. And that's the balance most people are missing. The ability to care without collapsing, to love without losing control, to give without draining yourself dry. When you master that, you become unshakable. And that's when everything starts to change. Because now, you're not the woman chasing reassurance. You're the woman radiating confidence. You're not reacting to the silence. You're owning it. You're not begging to be seen. You're choosing to stand tall in your own light. And that kind of energy, it doesn't just make someone miss you. It makes you unforgettable. Silence. That's the part no one teaches you how to handle. The texts stop, the energy shifts, and suddenly there's a gap where there used to be warmth. And it feels unbearable, doesn't it? That ache in your chest when someone you care about goes quiet. You start overthinking, replaying conversations, scanning for signs, wondering what you could have done differently. But here's the truth most people never tell you. Silence isn't the enemy. It's the most powerful space you'll ever stand in, if you can hold it without losing yourself. When you fill every quiet moment with noise, you rob both of you of the chance to feel what's missing. You chase, you text, you reach out just to check the temperature, hoping maybe this time he'll respond differently. But every time you do, you interrupt the one thing that could have made him miss you, your absence. Because silence is what creates contrast. It's what reminds people of your energy, your voice, your laughter, your love. It's what makes them realize what life feels like without your presence in it. But if you rush to fill that void, if you keep inserting yourself into that silence, he never gets the chance to feel your loss. So the next time it goes quiet, don't panic. Breathe. Let the silence do the work you're too scared to let it do. Because silence doesn't mean rejection. It means reflection. It's the pause where truth starts to surface. It's the space where you learn who's capable of showing up and who only stays when it's convenient. And it's also where you learn something about yourself, whether you can stand in uncertainty without trying to control it. Men need space to process their emotions differently. They pull away not always because they've stopped caring, but because it's how they reset. And when you can hold that silence with grace instead of anxiety, you show emotional strength. You send the unspoken message, I'm not here to chase you. I'm here to choose myself. That's when he starts to feel the pull, because you're no longer reacting from fear. You're responding from strength. He starts thinking about you again, wondering why you haven't reached out, missing the energy you brought. Because silence, when held with confidence, creates mystery. And mystery is powerful. Not because you're playing games, but because you're letting nature take its course. You're showing that your energy is not up for negotiation. You're not begging to be seen. You're allowing yourself to be missed. And the thing is, silence doesn't have to be harsh. You're not cutting him off. You're simply pulling your energy back into your own life. You're turning inward, refocusing, rebalancing. Because the woman who can stay calm in silence is the woman who owns her emotional world. She knows that love doesn't require chasing. It requires alignment. And alignment can only happen when both people have space to meet halfway. Now let's talk about another trap so many fall into. The idea that you have to match his emotion instead of his effort. This is where so many relationships start to unravel. He pulls away, and suddenly you're doubling your energy, trying to make up the difference. You're sending more texts, planning more meetups, giving more reassurance, hoping he'll come back. But all that does is teach him that he can do less and still get the same from you. It's a pattern that drains your worth, piece by piece. So let's flip that script. Instead of matching his emotion, his withdrawal, his coldness, his distance, match his effort. If he starts pulling back, you don't get smaller, but you also don't push harder. You meet him where he's at. If he texts less, you don't text more. You adjust. You calibrate. You stop overcompensating. That's not punishment, it's emotional equilibrium. It's how mature people create balance and connection. When you mirror effort instead of emotion, you send a powerful message. I'm not going to carry the whole relationship on my back. You're saying, if you want my energy, you have to meet me halfway. And that changes everything, because now you're no longer acting from fear. You're acting from confidence. You're not trying to force closeness. You're allowing the natural flow of energy to show you what's real. And here's the thing. Men respect balance. They might not always say it, but they feel it. They feel when your actions come from neediness. And they feel when your actions come from grounded strength. The moment you stop overreaching, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly he has to ask himself, wait, why isn't she chasing me? Why isn't she filling the silence? That pause, that moment of confusion, is where realization starts. That's when he starts remembering the value of your energy. But this isn't just about him. It's about you. Because when you stop overgiving, you stop betraying yourself. You stop pouring love into someone who hasn't earned that kind of access. You stop bending over backward for someone who's sitting comfortably on the sidelines. And instead, you bring the focus back to you. You start reclaiming your time, your peace, your power. You start investing in yourself the way you once invested in him. And here's what usually happens when you live this way. The energy shifts back. Because when someone realizes you won't beg, they start to notice your absence. When they see you're not chasing, they start to wonder where you went. When you stop trying to control the connection, you give them room to step up. And if they don't, you still win. Because you've proven to yourself that you can stay calm, balanced, and strong, even in uncertainty. So yes, silence can be uncomfortable. Mirroring effort can feel strange at first. But those two things, space and balance, are what separate emotional chaos from emotional mastery. They're what remind both you and him that love is not about control. It's about choice. And when you hold yourself with that kind of calm, confident energy, you stop chasing attention and start commanding respect. There's something magnetic about a woman who chooses to reinvent herself, not because someone left her, not because she's trying to prove a point, but because she finally realizes that she's been neglecting her own light. You know what I'm talking about. That moment when you look in the mirror and see a version of yourself that's tired, drained, disconnected. That woman who gave so much of herself away in the name of love that she forgot what it feels like to be vibrant, curious, alive. And then, one day, something shifts. You stop waiting for an apology. You stop waiting for closure. You stop waiting for someone to come back and remind you of your worth. You decide that you're going to rebuild your life, not from pain, but from power. That's when everything changes, because there's nothing more powerful than a woman who starts loving herself again. I'm not talking about surface-level self-care. I'm talking about deep inner rebuilding. The kind of self-love that says, I am no longer going to put my dreams on hold for anyone. You start showing up for yourself the way you wished someone else would. You start honoring your boundaries, protecting your peace, and feeding your soul again. You start choosing what feels good for you. That energy, it radiates. It transforms. The way you walk into a room, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself. People feel it before you even open your mouth. That's when he starts noticing, too. Because when you shift your focus from him to you, he feels it. When you stop chasing and start thriving, he feels that energy pull away, not in anger, but in elevation. You become a mirror reflecting what he lost and what you found. Yourself. The most irresistible energy in the world isn't perfection. It's confidence. It's peace. It's knowing who you are and refusing to apologize for it. And the beauty of this transformation is that it's not about revenge. It's not about making him jealous. It's about becoming so full of life that you don't need validation anymore. You're not trying to be chosen. You're too busy choosing yourself. You're investing in your career, your friendships, your health, your happiness. You're doing things that make you proud of the woman you're becoming. And that glow, that self-assuredness, that inner peace, it's unforgettable. Because when someone sees that you're doing well without them, not pretending, not forcing it, but genuinely living your best life, it leaves an impression. You're not trying to make him miss you, yet somehow he does. Because people miss energy that feels grounded. They miss the presence of someone who was real. They miss the calm, the laughter, the connection. But now they have to watch you give it to yourself. You've become your own source of joy. You've learned to fill your own cup, and that's the ultimate power move. When you live from that place of self-love, you stop overanalyzing texts, you stop begging for clarity, and you stop tying your worth to someone's attention. You start showing up as a whole person, not a half waiting to be completed. And that energy changes everything. It attracts better people, better opportunities, better love. You start drawing in relationships that match your new frequency. Honest, respectful, mutual. Because when you rise into self-love, you unconsciously set the standard for how others will treat you, and that's when detachment enters the picture. Not detachment as in indifference, but the kind that comes from emotional maturity. It's that deep exhale when you finally realize you don't have to fight for what's meant for you. You can care about someone deeply and still let them go. You can love someone and still walk away when peace costs too much. That's detachment with grace. It's not about closing your heart. It's about opening it without losing yourself in the process. When you reach that stage, you don't need to make big statements. You don't need to prove that you've moved on. Your energy speaks for you. You can still wish them well, still smile at the memories, and still stand firmly in your decision. Because detachment isn't about bitterness. It's about boundaries. It's about saying, I can love you and still love me more. That level of peace comes when you finally stop letting someone else's inconsistency dictate your emotions. You stop asking, why did they pull away? Why didn't they stay? And start asking, what did this experience teach me about myself? You stop needing answers from them because you start finding meaning within you. And that's when you reclaim your freedom. You're no longer chasing closure. You are the closure. The most powerful moment in any woman's life is when she stops trying to control outcomes and starts trusting her strength. When she can look back and say, yes, that hurt, but I grew. I learned. I rose. Detachment with grace is realizing that love doesn't have to end in resentment. It can end in wisdom. It can end with gratitude for what it taught you and excitement for what's next. Because what's next for a woman who's done the inner work is always better. Always brighter, always truer, and let's be real. There's something stunning about a woman who's calm in the face of uncertainty, who doesn't chase after closure or crumble under silence, who can smile, stand tall, and keep moving forward. That kind of energy lingers. That's what makes people stop and think, I shouldn't have taken her for granted. Because grace has power. Grace is strength disguised as softness. You stop clinging. You stop begging. You stop performing. You start allowing. You start trusting that what's meant for you will show up without you having to beg for it. And that shift, from control to trust, from fear to faith, is what changes everything. That's when you become unstoppable. That's when you start attracting from abundance instead of scarcity. So when you detach with grace, when you love without losing yourself, when you walk away with peace instead of pain, you win. You don't win because you made him miss you. You win because you found yourself again. Because your happiness is no longer conditional. Because you no longer need anyone to validate your worth. You've learned to stand in your power quietly, confidently, beautifully. You've become the kind of woman who doesn't chase being missed. She becomes unforgettable simply by being who she is. So, if you want to make him miss you, don't play games. Don't manipulate. Don't chase. Instead, become unforgettable. Focus on your own growth, your self-worth, your inner light. Because when you rise into your own power, you don't just make him miss you, you make yourself proud. If this message resonated with you, I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What part of this spoke to your heart the most? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe for more deep, real, empowering relationship talks. And tell me, what topic do you want us to dive into next? Because this isn't just a channel. It's a community of strong, self-aware women redefining love on their own terms.